The ex-wife of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Sarah Ferguson, is set to move into a home on her own.
The invitation that changed everything. The envelope reached Royal Lodge on a crisp fall morning in 2023, marked with the unmistakable emblem of a top-tier luxury brand. Inside was an invitation that would trigger a chain of events costing Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie more than $1.5 million. The offer was extraordinary. A major fashion label wanted Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, to serve as the face of their new campaign honoring women over 60. The proposed payment was astonishing, 7 figures, with additional revenue opportunities for her daughters through related ventures. Sarah held the embossed card, examining the refined script. This wasn't just another business proposal. It felt like vindication, a worldwide platform after decades of tabloid ridicule and financial controversy. Yet something in her gut twisted. She placed the invitation on the antique writing desk, once owned by Queen Victoria, and moved to the window overlooking the grounds of Windsor Great Park. The Duchess of York had spent 30 years restoring her reputation after the 1992 toe-sucking scandal nearly destroyed her life. She had clawed her way back through children's books, American TV appearances, and endless reinvention. Her daughters had stood beside her through bankruptcy, humiliation, and the wilderness years when palace doors stayed firmly shut. Now, at 64, she had finally earned a degree of respect. The question was whether she could risk it all again. Beatrice called that evening from her home in the Cotswolds. Her voice carried that familiar tone of controlled excitement that defined royal conversations, even between mother and daughter. She had heard whispers about the offer through connections in the fashion world. The brand was impeccable, she told her mother. The campaign would be refined, dignified, exactly the kind of exposure that could reshape their family's commercial prospects for decades. What Beatrice didn't say, but Sarah immediately understood, was how badly her daughters needed this chance. Despite their royal blood, Beatrice and Eugenie held an odd position in today's monarchy. They were princesses without official roles, entitled to their titles, but not to funding from the sovereign grant. They worked regular jobs by royal standards, one in tech, the other in the art world, while still carrying the costly expectations of their upbringing. A successful campaign led by their mother could open doors to brand deals, speaking engagements, and lucrative business ventures. Sarah listened to her daughter's carefully managed enthusiasm and felt the weight of maternal duty settle heavily on her shoulders. She had made so many errors in life, caused her daughters so much embarrassment. Maybe this was finally her chance to provide for them in the way she had always hoped but never achieved. She told Beatrice she would seriously consider the offer and ended the call. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She wandered through the vast rooms of Royal Lodge, the 30-room estate she still shared with her ex-husband Prince Andrew, despite their divorce nearly 3 decades earlier. The arrangement puzzled many, but it worked for them. Andrew was in his study, dealing with his own catastrophic downfall. She didn't disturb him. This decision had to be hers alone. The financial stakes were impossible to ignore. The brand had outlined a detailed plan. Sarah would appear in print ads, digital campaigns, and a short film highlighting resilience and reinvention. The initial contract was worth £1,200,000, but the real value lay in what followed. Beatrice and Eugenie would be positioned as modern working royals who could bridge tradition and contemporary culture. Endorsements, consulting roles, media projects, the potential easily exceeded £2 million over 5 years. Still, Sarah understood something her optimistic daughters didn't fully grasp. The British press had never forgiven her for the numerous scandals throughout her public life. They had labeled her the Duchess of Pork, ridiculed her weight, her finances, and her decisions. Every attempt at commercial success had been scrutinized and mocked. The toe incident, the cash for access scandal, the Oprah interviews, each episode became ammunition for critics. Would this time be any different? She remembered her last major commercial campaign years prior. The excitement, the signed contracts, the completed photo shoots. followed by brutal backlash. The tabloids accused her of profiting off her royal ties. Palace insiders leaked their displeasure. The Grand quietly backed away, and the opportunities promised for her daughters vanished like morning fog over the Thames. Beatrice had cried, not for herself, but for her mother becoming a public spectacle again. Sarah wrapped her robe tighter against the fall chill. The house was silent except for the old heating system groaning through the walls. She thought about her daughters' futures, their children, the legacy she would leave. Money mattered, especially after experiencing poverty during her bankruptcy. But some things money could never restore. Dignity, peace, the ability to move through life without being a punchline. The weight of history lingered. The morning after receiving the invitation, Sarah drove to Windsor Castle for a private lunch with a trusted friend, a lady-in-waiting who had served the late Queen Elizabeth for 40 years. They met in a small, oak-paneled room far from tourist routes, where portraits of long-dead royals stared down with disapproving eyes. Her friend poured tea with the precision of someone who had performed the ritual countless times. She didn't ask directly about the offer. Sarah suspected she already knew. Information traveled quickly through palace circles, carried by discreet whispers from private secretaries and protection officers. Instead, they spoke about the late queen, gone just over a year. Sarah hadn't been invited to the funeral service, only the committal at Windsor. The exclusion had hurt, even though she expected it. The queen had been kind and private, but the institution had its rules. Sarah had broken too many. Her friend eventually approached the unspoken issue. She explained that the royal family was in a transitional phase. King Charles was working to streamline the monarchy for a new era. There was no space in this vision for extended relatives who courted commercial controversy. The king had made his stance clear after the scandals surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan. Royal titles and commercial endeavors did not mix. Those who chose business chose a form of exile. Sarah felt her chest tighten. She had not been a working royal since her divorce, true, but she was still the mother of princesses, the former wife of the king's brother. Any major commercial campaign would appear to exploit those connections. The palace couldn't legally stop her, but they could express disapproval in ways that mattered. Invitations would vanish, security evaluations could shift. The delicate balance she had achieved after years of rebuilding could crumble instantly. Yet her friend wasn't unsympathetic. She knew the financial strain Sarah faced, raising royal daughters without royal funding. She had watched Beatrice and Eugenie become admirable young women despite their turbulent upbringing. They deserved better than to become casualties in their mother's lifelong struggle with public perception. Her conversation lasted 2 hours, circling the dilemma without resolution. When Sarah left Windsor, passing tourists snapping pictures at the gates, she felt more torn than ever. The path ahead wasn't clear, but the stakes were glaring. This decision would have consequences far beyond a single ad campaign. That evening, Eugenie called from Portugal, where she was attending an art show. Her voice bubbled with the excitement Sarah remembered from their childhood before life grew complicated. Eugenie had been contacted by the brand's team. They wanted to